Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Moynihan Report. I say back because you've clearly been watching before. Thanks for joining us here on Two-Way. And it wouldn't be possible without our dear friends at FIRE, the only people, it seems, in America that still are sticking to principle, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, an organization dedicated to promotion of free speech and the legal defense of those whose free speech rights are being abrogated. So donate, subscribe, go to thefire.org/Moynihan. Go there, because then they know it's from us, and subscribe to the newsletter. All right, today, I'm very excited today because, you know, there's too much politics on Earth right now, and everything in politics is driving me crazy. If you watched the last episode, you might have seen me blow a gasket or two about a few issues. We'll probably be back to that on Thursday, so come back on Thursday. But today we have one of my favorite people, actor, former fat guy. Can I say that? Is that okay to say former fat guy?
Yes, though I still identify as fat. So.
Okay. He still identifies as fat. Ethan Suplee, you've seen him in Blow, Wolf of Wall Street. It just keeps going and going. And he has an amazing podcast called American Glutton, right?
Yes.
That's an amazing. All right. But I've already introduced Ethan, but I wanted to show you my favorite clip of Ethan's acting. So this is from the movie Blow with Johnny Depp.
Fucking stoned. Fucking stoned. Really stoned. Fucking stoned, man. I'm really stoned.
That just shows you the range of Ethan Suplee as an actor. You were a big guy back then.
I was a big guy back then.
Wait, were you a drug addict then?
I was, yes, a functioning drug addict at that
But so
time.
on Blow,
I
were doing heroin, I presume?
I wasn't doing heroin yet. I think I was doing a lot of pills and blow.
Okay, so you were doing Blow on the set of Blow.
Yeah.
Give me a sense of where, because, you know, I've heard you tell stories, and I'm like, oh, that was Ethan's bottom.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that wasn't Ethan's bottom.
No.
When did you bottom out? Because, I mean, you're at peak, what, 500 plus pounds?
500 plus pounds, yeah.
Wow.
And 536 weighed, but then that was in rehab, and I gained weight from there. So.
You gained weight in rehab from 536?
Yeah.
And you were doing heroin?
Yeah.
Are you the only fat heroin addict that's ever
Michael
existed?
Malice actually called me gleefully to say I am not the unicorn, that apparently Mama Cass was also a very large heroin addict. Yeah.
Oh, but who, by the way, did not choke on a ham sandwich. It's not true.
Right.
She's not with us anymore, but she wasn't the ham sandwich.
Yeah.
So what is the moment where you say, okay, either no more drugs or I cannot function as somebody who's 530, 40 pounds?
Well, wanting to lose weight happened later.
Yeah.
I had congestive heart failure, and this presented with swelling feet, and the swelling would move up my legs, and then I would stop using drugs. And this was just on my own. I would go like, maybe I have to get my stuff together and stop using drugs. And the swelling would go away, and then I'd start using drugs again. And then the swelling didn't stop, so I went to a doctor and was told I had congestive heart failure. And the doctor actually said that I was going to die even if I got clean, because I was such a
He told you
such a
you're
mess.
going to die,
Yeah.
regardless of if you're on drugs or not.
Yeah.
That must have been a pretty jarring moment.
It was not great, but I kind of was like, well, I'm going to give my parents a sober corpse.
Yeah.
And so I went to rehab, and that was the last time I went to rehab.
So you never broke after that?
No, I did, but I didn't break so hard that it wasn't like come to Jesus over the weekend and get back on track.
I mean, tell people, tell me and tell the audience how one is 500 plus pounds, doing every drug you can get your hands on, and yet working with the biggest directors in the world, the biggest actors in the world. I mean, if you want to be impressed by something, people go to Ethan's IMDb. It's like every actor, every famous director, every movie that you've seen, a bunch of hugely popular TV shows. How do you manage that when you're so unbelievably unhealthy?
Yeah, I don't know. I never was late to work. I never missed a day of work. Even when I was like dope sick and trying to get my act together, I still showed up to work. I knew my lines. I landed on my X that they put down in tape for me. I don't think I would have hired myself back then.
Really?
Yeah, probably not.
But people didn't know what, I mean,
You know,
you're playing, I mean, let's be honest, you're playing the fat guy, right? You're
Yeah.
always playing the fat guy because it can't be incidental to the character, right? Or never really has been.
No.
It's always part of the character.
yes, I tried to steer away from things that objectified my fatness, that made that the butt of jokes.
Right?
And I did a pretty good job at that. But as far as like drug use goes, at a certain point, I think it's fairly obvious when somebody's on drugs. And maybe not during Blow, but a few movies later or a couple years after that, it would have been obvious to anyone who knew what to look for that I was using drugs.
I mean, probably one of your most iconic roles. And if anybody says, Ethan Suplee, I know, I say, the fat Nazi. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're the fat Nazi in American History X. I
Yes.
mean, you're on drugs at that point, too.
That was the beginning, yeah. I wasn't a total mess then. I mean, I was physically a mess, but I wasn't a full-on junkie at that point.
Yeah. So you get clean.
Yeah.
I mean, let's go back a little further than that, actually, because if you go back and look at photos from you at this time and you're like, oh my God, this is a totally transformed person. But the other thing that you see is a late 90s, early 2000s that looks like a ton of fun,
Yeah.
right? It's you, Leonardo DiCaprio, Giovanni Ribisi, all these guys hanging out, which gets an unfair name that somebody in New York Magazine made up. And
Yeah.
by the way, I went back and read the piece. It's a totally garbage piece.
She invented that name. None
And
of
that
us,
is the
that
Pussy
was not-
Posse.
yeah,
I
yeah.
gotta say it.
None of us came. Yeah.
Yeah.
That name is, and that name creeps up occasionally, and
Yeah.
it's just like, I have 4 daughters. I have a wife.
Yeah.
This is not, the 90s were definitely fun. There were no cell phone cameras. It was a great time to go out to nightclubs, and you could be rowdy and not expect it to be, on TikTok the next day. But that whole identity was a fabrication.
But there was some truth to the fact that you had a very different youth than most people, right? I mean,
Sure.
you start acting 15, 14, something like that?
Yes, and I'm a dude who I'm a heterosexual dude. Anybody that I knew at that age was interested in girls, but there wasn't the grossness that article portrayed and that name was associated with.
Do you think you would have been, physically as big as you were, you would have like succumbed to drugs and the rest of it had you not been growing up in LA?
I don't know. I mean, I think, when I try to trace it back, like I was put on my first diet at 5 years old. And when I look at pictures of me as a 5-year-old, I don't see a kid that needed to be put on a diet, but my parents were seeing some behavior that was setting off alarm bells for them.
Impulsive behavior.
Yeah, and they were like, we got to get this under control. And then I was just on diets my whole life. So I think that I probably would have wound up overweight. The minute I had any autonomy, I wasn't 500 pounds when I started working as an actor, but that was like my first job. I was newly an adult. I had money. I had a car, and I just ate.
And that's Boy Meets World?
Boy
Is that
Meets
what
World.
that's? And you play the not 500-pound bully, right?
Yeah,
That's
very, very overweight, but not 500 pounds. Yeah.
The very overweight bully.
Yeah.
And in that moment, you become kind of famous kind of quick, right? Because that was like a huge, it missed me, right? Because that's like mid-90s.
I hope it missed.
Because
you,
if I
yes.
was in college watching Boy Meets World, you'd probably think I was a bit of a creep, right?
Yeah, if anybody
That's not
my age at the time had
Yeah.
come up to me and gone like, "I love you" on Boy Meets World, it would have been
Yeah,
very
it
weird.
would
It
have
was
been
a show
Amber
for
Alert.
kids.
Yeah.
A show for kids and families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's that like getting famous at such a young age where, people are recognizing you, you get to, entree into this totally different world.
It's such an utter relief because the eyes that were on me simply because I was fat are now potentially on me because they've seen me on TV.
Yeah.
Or on me because they have definitely seen me on TV. Or
And you can tell yourself that too.
yes, either way, I can now construct this new existence, this new narrative where that guy's not looking at me because I'm fat. He's looking at me because I'm on TV, and it's a truly a palpable relief to me.
Yeah.
There was something that happened right after that. I had kind of a strained relationship with my father, but he had talked about some island, the ABC Islands, and I did a little research and found the most like secluded of them was Curacao.
Yeah.
And I had made this money from Boy Meets World. I was, 18 years old, and I said, Dad, let's go on a trip together. So I took him to Curacao, and I was terribly uncomfortable. I didn't like going to the beach because I didn't want to be seen. So we found like desolate beaches to hang out at. And then one day he just wanted to stay at the resort and be by the pool. And I saw these little kids laughing and looking at me. And I was terrified that they were going to embarrass me in front of my father. And by the time they made it over to us and they said, "Are you Frankie from Boy Meets World?" It was the first time I felt proud in front of my father, but it was just an utter relief that my weight has nothing to do with why their attention is drawn to me.
But your father must have known, the struggles with it. I mean, if they put you on a diet when you were 5 years old, and you're going, I don't want to go to the beach. I mean, he's got to telegraph that in some way that my son is, becoming very famous and becoming a TV guy and is incredibly uncomfortable with his body. I mean, you can't not see that in your own kid, right?
Maybe. I hope this would be something I would be looking for in my kids, but this was not something my father and I ever openly talked about.
Yeah, how does that affect how you parent now? I mean,
well, I have
you have four.
I have four girls, and my intention with them was always to be like no restrictions because I had so much restriction. So my wife and I were very much like the parents who said, like, you want to do drugs, you do, and I'm sober, but you want to drink and do drugs, do them. Just be honest with us. Don't lie. Don't hide. Don't cover it up. If you ever call us from
It's a risky tactic.
Yeah, but it worked out pretty well for us because my youngest just graduated high school. My oldest are graduated from college, and I have one in college, and they're all pretty well squared away. The place it got in trouble was I also didn't want to restrict their food, and then one of them had type 1 diabetes.
Yes.
She was diagnosed at 4, and suddenly we're counting carbohydrates, and I felt that position that my parents must have felt they were in, and I rationalize it by going like, well, if her blood sugar drops too low, she dies. And if her blood sugar is too high over a period of time, she loses her eyesight or has kidney problems or something like that. But really, I think my parents were probably doing the same version of a rationalization of like, if we don't get this under control, we're going to have a real problem with it. And unfortunately, it didn't get under control until I decided to get it under control. And I struggled with my kid and her blood sugar until I was like, I'm turning this over to you. You be responsible for this. I can't track your blood glucose anymore. And then she did, and she's got a good A1C now.
And you don't have that type of relationship with your father. You don't have a relationship like that, I think, also with your mother when you're talking about your weight and stuff. You decide that, I mean, you're the Hollywood fat guy, right? I mean, you're gonna get a lot of roles because of that. And then if you get in shape and if you lose that, some of those roles are gonna evaporate, right?
Yeah.
They're not gonna think of you anymore. Without parents and peers and the rest of it, how do you decide, like, I gotta not be this person anymore? Because that's the moment, I think, for a lot of people, is that I see a lot of people in my life that moment in which something snaps in their brain, and they say, I can no longer live like this.
Yeah.
And whether it's drugs, alcohol, or food or something, what is that moment for you, and when does it actually take?
I think that I spent so much of my life kind of compartmentalizing these things. And so, like, what I wanted people to be unaware of with me, which was just so objectively obvious, my weight, I also tried to, like, not think about it as much as possible. And then I'd been sober for about a year, and I got on a plane and had a really uncomfortable conversation with a guy who was basically like holding a mirror up to my face going, look at yourself.
Wait, a stranger on a plane?
Well, Jim Caviezel, who I was meant to work with.
Oh, yeah.
Who I then did.
Passion of the Christ, among other.
We were going to do a version of Robin Hood, and then we like met, and that movie fell apart, and we met in a LAX, lounge, and then we happened to be going to Frankfurt on the same flight, and I had a seat open next to me, and he sat in the seat, and for many hours was like, dude. And
at what point did you regret giving that seat to Jim Caviezel?
No,
it's like, dude, leave me alone.
When I saw that I had an open seat, my heart sank, because I knew he was going to come and talk to me, and I did not want to have the conversation at all, and it was the most uncomfortable conversation.
Wait, so how did you know that Christ was going to come over and talk to you about your weight for 9 hours or something?
Well, he didn't bring up my weight in the lounge, but he had a very intense, like, blinkless stare.
Yeah.
Without words in the lounge, that I was just like, this is uncomfortable. I'm gonna go sit over here. Nice to meet you. And I knew that was gonna happen on the plane, and it did. And whether I manifested that or that, I knew I foretold the future. I had a guy basically saying, like, look at yourself for 11 hours.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of...
Thank God he did it, though.
Yeah.
I'm, like, utterly grateful to Jim Caviezel.
Wait, so are you a proponent, and I know this is it's not a digression, it's a similar instinct. Are you a proponent? I don't mean proponent, because I take the meanness out of it in fat shaming. People say, no, I know. Like, fat shaming, I think, is a loaded, very political term in a lot of ways. But... just telling somebody, it's okay. Your body is beautiful. You are beautiful who you are. I mean, you look at Lizzo, who was doing that body positivity thing for a very long time.
Yeah.
And then she drops a ton of weight and essentially says, if I'm wrong, I was wrong about that, right?
And got a lot of backlash.
Got a lot of backlash.
Yeah. Here's what I believe. I believe that if you are an enemy to yourself, that it's very hard to progress. And so you have to find some way to care for yourself and like yourself and appreciate yourself. But you can also, like, be hard on yourself. I have kids. Being kind to my kid does not mean I let them juggle knives if that's what they want to do. I have to say no. Kindness can be putting up barriers. I don't believe in fat shaming, and I don't even believe Jim Caviezel was fat shaming me. It wasn't even his message, which was ultimately like, I am trying in my life to emulate Jesus Christ and you are not. That didn't reach me at all.
He not only plays Jesus Christ, he is a disciple of Jesus Christ, right? He's a pretty religious dude.
Every aspect of his life is to honor Jesus Christ. I'm not a Jesus Christ guy.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for him if he's living a righteous life. But what got to me was, I never want somebody to feel like they can have this conversation again. That was it. I never, and then simultaneously.
Jim Caviezel essentially annoyed you into thinness?
Well,
like, I don't want to have this again. It
was double pronged. I was a year sober. I was not thinking, I was compartmentalizing this whole part of my life and really, occluding it. And he brought it up and held the mirror in front of my face, and I took a good long look, and I was like, wow, there is an awful lot that I can't do right now because of my body. Like, I have this girlfriend at the time who I now am married to and have lots of kids with, and I have truly a fairy tale life. But I had this girlfriend, and I started to think, like, is she even aware of this thing that I wasn't really aware of 5 minutes ago until Jim Caviezel made me aware of it? That is so bizarre because it's the most objective thing ever. I am literally 500 pounds.
But no one else said this to you? Like, I mean, you have a lot of friends in Hollywood. You're on endless number of movies and TV shows. I mean, Jim Caviezel, I get why he did, is always sort of proselytizing.
He was saving me.
It's like, this is the catechism of Jim Caviezel. But no one else said anything to you? Like, dude, this is dangerous. It's bad for you and it's dangerous.
No, Leo put me on a diet when we were teenagers. He found it. He paid for it. He said, all you have to do is show up. This great guy in Beverly Hills. I went and did it for a little while, lost some weight, gained the weight back. Kevin Connolly, another dear friend of mine, talked beyond nursing me through withdrawals on the set of a movie, he had conversations with me like, I'm worried about you.
Did you never get fired from a movie because you were going through withdrawals or having, spun out drug episodes at all?
No, never got
It's a charmed
fired.
life, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it amazes me that I was never fired. Yeah. I did a podcast episode for a podcast called Risk, where I told a very unsanitary story about one of my experiences at work, which wasn't even my rock bottom, where so if you want to hear it, I'm not going to tell it now. I don't know. Are we allowed to even swear on this?
You get this the internet. What do you think?
Well,
this is,
who
like,
knows?
the
This is
Christian
very.
Broadcasting
You've got
Caviezel really
stenciled
fucked you
walls.
up. Yeah, like,
Listen, we're
you don't wanna
talking about
say?
Christ.
You don't want to swear? No. I mean, I have heard the episode. And
Yes,
it
so you know,
involves
yeah.
you shitting your pants. Basically.
Shitting the trailer.
Yes.
And my pants. And all over the walls and everywhere else. Yes. And I didn't get fired, which is amazing to me. I don't know how that happens.
How do you view?
I would have fired myself, Michael.
Yeah, no, I want to like create a time machine and go back in time and fire
Fucking
him.
fire that guy.
Yeah, I was like, get this shitter out of he's like on heroin and shitting
Yeah.
on the walls.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe a bridge too far.
Yeah.
How do you now, seeing what you saw then, and obviously these things change over time, how do you view Hollywood as a kind of unit institution? I mean, so many people say that it facilitates bad behavior. It's just a crazy, insane, make-believe land that drives people insane, blah, blah, blah. When you look back at that time and like you didn't even get fired from that.
Yeah.
I mean,
There are so many like really decent, good people in Hollywood. So I think it's unfair to categorize it as one thing. There are certainly, you go to make a movie, it's not like you're at an office and you have a job that's just going to continue forever. Unless you're on a TV series, then the hope is that it continues forever. But a movie is like 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like, we just got to get through the day. And it's, this panicked running around, putting out fires, and whether that fire is like the film didn't show up or the lead actor won't come out of his trailer for God knows what. It's like, we got to just make this happen come hell or high water. And so maybe there's some looking beyond the morality of what's really going on just to make your day every day, because it ends. You have a certain amount of days and then it's over. And
I mean, you had My Name is Earl.
Yeah.
And that lasted how many seasons?
we did 99 episodes
That's
of
a
that
lot of
show.
episodes.
Yeah, there was a strike in the middle of it, so it got
Pretty
weird.
Regular and steady job.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that it's everything is always on a knife's edge. You don't know when the next job is going to come, if it's going to come.
Yeah.
But when you see the Harvey Weinstein story happen, for instance, and that becomes a shorthand for so many people of what Hollywood is.
Yeah.
It's a kind of ravenous culture that will tear you to shreds, exploits people who are young and come in, and then spits them out when they're done with them.
I think that you could go to any industry and find some really bad people. I got blacklisted from Miramax early on, tried to fist fight Harvey Weinstein
Hang on.
at the Venice Film Festival.
You tried to fist. Well, first of all, what's your weigh-in at this point?
Probably 450.
Wow.
Yeah.
Harvey Weinstein's probably about 3, though.
Three-
Yeah, he's probably like a pretty
he's
fair.
He's 350.
You guys are
I would've wiped
close
the
to the
floor
same
with
weight
him.
class,
Yeah.
right? How do you end up almost getting into a fight with him?
Well, I'd been blacklisted from Miramax.
Why did that happen?
I was offered a role in a Dimension movie, which was run by his brother.
Yeah. Bob,
And
right?
and my representative said, you have to pay him more money, so let's figure that out. And they said, we'll iron out the money, let's work out the rest of the contract. Worked out the rest of the contract, came back to money, and they said, no, Ethan's not going to do it, you have to pay him more money. And they said, well, we're suing him. And my lawyer said, just do the movie, it's not worth the lawsuit. So I went and did the movie, and then when I was brought up for a Miramax movie, like 4 months later, they said he's blacklisted. So I kind of
use that language. He's blacklisted.
there was a blacklist. Yeah. There was a list of names. I was eventually taken off the blacklist by Anthony Minghella, who told Harvey, I'm hiring Ethan. Fuck you. I don't care if he's on your blacklist. He's going to be in my movie, which was Cold Mountain. And then I was off their blacklist. But I then wound up at the Venice Film Festival, and was at a table with him, and he was kind of talking shit about one of my friends, and I said, hey, that guy's not here, watch your mouth. And he was like, oh, what do you want to do about it? And I said, I'll take you outside right now. Let's go. And I stood up, and then he begged off, basically.
Can you say who he was talking shit about?
No.
You can't?
No,
Oh,
I
he's
can't
in
say.
prison. It doesn't matter.
No, but I don't want my friend to know.
I mean, wait, is it hard not to have an enormous amount of schadenfreude when that happens, when he gets sentenced?
Well, based on my interactions with him, I don't wish the guy in prison. Like,
Yeah.
he blacklisted me, and he,
Yeah.
I wasn't unaware of all the other stuff, but he didn't seem like a great guy, to be honest with you. He seemed like a bad guy. But I think, I haven't been in other industries, but from people I've spoken to, it seems like there's bad guys in
God.
just about every industry you can venture in.
I can name a whole bunch. I mean, if you subscribe to 2A, we'll do like a separate thing, and I'll tell you who all the horrible people are.
Especially starting with the horrible people at 2A.
Yes, I mean, in this room, if you looked over here, if you could see that, oh my God, it's a rogues gallery. But why do you think that those people end up so successful? And, you know, there was an article a long time ago in The Atlantic about how, yeah, like assholes do finish first and nice guys do finish last. And there was some sort of scientific evidence of this. But I always wondered that it's a hard thing to teach your kids.
Yeah.
It's like the most successful people in my business are often complete, like scumbags.
Yeah.
And people are afraid of them, et cetera. There does seem to be an element of that in Hollywood.
Sure.
Of people that are, who was the other guy that was the producer who was, Variety did a piece about him throwing phones and all this stuff, and he was canceled too. I don't remember who, but it doesn't matter. There's a lot of them.
Get
Right?
it wrong, yeah. Throwing phones. You know, like, it's a fine line because Harvey Weinstein was doing such reprehensible, evil stuff.
Yeah.
But then you got a guy like Stanley Kubrick, who was a yeller. And, like, I don't know that...
Did you ever work with him?
No,
Yeah.
but I would have loved to. I would have loved to have been yelled at by him.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Ivan Reitman yelled at me a couple of times, and I felt, like, honored to be yelled at by him.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, there's the correction, and then there's the overcorrection, and now, like, you know, everything is on a razor's edge on a movie set. You got to make your day. If you don't, this artistic vision is going to fall apart. I don't think you always have to be nice, but I think with guys who you're talking about, like these kind of narcissistic, evil people,
Yeah.
I think there's just, like, no empathy. They're sociopaths. They will just run over people and use them in the pursuit of whatever they want to do.
Yeah, and this isn't a political question at all, but what is the temperature like in Hollywood now? I mean, there was a moment, you know, after the Harvey Weinstein thing, that there's absolute paranoia. And I mean, I can say the political thing because that's what I do, but there was a lot of, you know, films being commissioned that nobody wanted to watch, but made them feel good about themselves. And it seemed like there was this kind of, you know, manic moment that was reacting to things in the country. Now we have Donald Trump, et cetera. What is the kind of feeling now in Hollywood? Because it did feel for a bit, right, after the Me Too stuff, that there was kind of a different kind of air in Hollywood.
My perspective on it was you have Trump, you have he's basically bulletproof. Nothing anybody brought up seemed to deter his popularity.
He became president twice.
And so the first time it was like, well, if we can't get Trump, we're going to get anyone we consider to be like Trump. And so then you have all this stuff. And it was, I think that's what you're talking about with movies that mass audiences don't want to see or don't appeal to them. And then it settles down and we start to go back to normal. Who knows? We're very early in on this next round. So I don't know if it builds back up, but I think people are a little exhausted by all of that, you know, and want to just get back to, like, making movies that are interesting.
What's the most interesting movie you've made?
Movie?
Or TV show?
My favorite TV show that I've been in is a TV show called Chance. which was on Hulu, still on Hulu, with me and Hugh Laurie. I think it's awesome.
Oh, the great Hugh Laurie.
The great Hugh Laurie.
Yeah.
Who's
Chance.
British? Did you know that?
He's British. Of course I did.
I had no idea.
Fry and Laurie, Stephen Fry, they had a great sketch show.
I was familiar with that, but the first time we were riding home together after work, and he was no longer Chance and was speaking in a British accent, I thought he was pulling my leg. Like, I
Were
was
you on drugs at this point?
No, stone sober, and just totally baffled by who is this British guy in the front seat.
What about a director? I mean, the list of directors that you've worked with is like unbelievably impressive. I mean, from Scorsese on down, that's the one that people, you say Ivan Reitman.
Yeah.
People who know about films know Ivan Reitman did everything, did so many of the films that you love. Director that you think is the...
I love Nick Cassavetes.
Nick Cassavetes.
Nick Cassavetes is, I mean, he was an actor for a very long time, and he's a damn good director, and
the son of John Cassavetes.
Son of John, so he had a great mentor, and he just communicates in a very easy to understand way that I can duplicate what he's telling me to do without like struggling. Sometimes somebody will have a concept for a scene and they can't get it from their mind to yours, and Nick always just very easily gets his idea into me, which is really nice.
Do you like acting?
Yeah.
You do?
A lot, yeah.
You don't want to stop. I mean, there's so many people, the reason I asked that question, so many people I know in their professions who are very good at it, don't like it and don't want to be a part of it and want to stop doing it. But that's not the case for you.
No, I love it, man. If it's something that is like speaks to me emotionally or gets my juices flowing, and recently my wife is a little scared of this. The last two things I've done that really did this were super evil bad guy parts, which I hadn't done a lot of. Like even American History X, I'm the buffoon. You know what I mean? Like Edward Norton is playing the super evil, scary bad guy role, and then he's reformed. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. I mean, it's 20 years old.
You can might even be 30. But
it is.
So I'm like the buffoon bad guy. And now I've done a couple things where I've been playing like really kind of savagely evil characters.
And that's
so much fun.
Well, I think nice people, maybe that's a good character for them to play.
Yeah.
Does it ever bother you, by the way, that the Archie Bunker effect of American History X, that, the Archie Bunker effect, what I mean by that is obviously the Archie Bunker character was supposed to be the buffoon.
Right.
You're supposed to laugh at him. You weren't supposed to be like, oh, that's a great racist joke. That I have seen when doing research, this is not a Nick Fuentes podcast. The Nazis liked that role of yours.
That's the most bizarre thing ever.
But you have seen that, right? It's not just me.
I've experienced it in public.
Like Nazis have come up to you?
I don't know. No, I mean Nazis. They didn't take their shirts off and reveal a giant swastika tattoo. But I have definitely been approached by people with almost a knowing wink and a nod, where I'm going like, Did you really understand that movie? Did you're the bad guy.
It wasn't aspirational.
Yeah, and it's never so open that like it's said like, hey, we're into Hitler and you are too, right? It's not that, but it is just an uncomfortable like, I really love that movie, where you're like, what? I don't think you got it.
Yeah, when people love that movie too much, it's a bit unnerving to me. Because I know some people that love that movie, and I don't like them very much.
I think it's fair to say like it's a good message. It's it's tough to digest, but important.
I mean, it's a great film. I mean, it really, really is a very good film.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is. Let's get back to. I mean, I want to take some people in the audience to ask some questions, and I imagine what they're all asking or want to ask about is what I have asked you about. I went on an insulin pump. I too am a type 1 diabetic. And I gained like 10 pounds. I mean, look at older footage of me. This is not, you
look fantastic.
I'm a little bigger. I lost some weight.
You look different than the last time I saw you.
Yeah, I texted you.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm trying to lose 10 pounds and the scale isn't budging.
Yeah.
Not even moving. And you responded to me with something that I've realized is true, is that it's really, really hard to lose 10 pounds. And actually a lot easier to lose like 200, right?
Yes.
Because it's a total lifestyle change. I'm doing things at the margins here. When people come to you, your podcast is about gluttony, is about food, is about losing weight. And so regardless of whether you're the fat actor when you're 20 years old and you are in great shape now, it's your whole life is about weight, right?
Pretty
and
much.
you do this is also the prep deck, which if for a diabetic, very good. You can have Ethan in your pocket when you go to the grocery store and take these out and see what you should be eating.
Yeah.
And people look at you like, yeah, he's normal. So my Suplee deck that I have in here. But when people come to you and say, I want to lose weight, I'm fat, and I don't really feel like doing Ozempic because there's a lot of things that happen to people, a lot of unknowns in Ozempic and side effects. Where do you start them?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a long conversation. And like when somebody asks me in public, how'd you do it? I'll say diet and exercise, which is factually true, but incredibly dishonest.
How is it dishonest?
Because there's so much more to it than just diet. I mean, that's like the technical aspect that changed. Thermodynamics applies. Calories in, calories out at the end of the day is all that really matters. And if you want to lose weight, you eat in a calorie deficit and you will lose weight.
But that's not.
But getting into that, being able to maintain that. And then the reality is, well, for sure, the last 10 pounds is the hardest, but then it's the rest of your life is keeping it off because it came on for some reason.
Yeah.
And if you don't really address that and you don't look to plug those holes, you're just going to put the weight back on.
So it's not as simple as I'm just going to eat meat, no carbs.
I mean, no.
That's not
I mean, like
thing?
you might be able to lose 10 pounds by cutting out carbs. I could lose 10 pounds this week by cutting out carbs. If you've got a lot of weight to lose, the weight loss is going to slow down and it's going to stall altogether at some point. And then you have to just eat less. And that's where the caloric deficit comes into play. And if you're just not willing to do that, and then when you get to your goal weight, you're just going to starve yourself for the rest of your life because that's how you got there. And if you just suddenly start eating more, you'll gain weight.
Because you were thinner than this. I mean, I've seen pictures of you where, I mean, you kind of look gaunt.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a period there, I don't know if it's 2015, 14, around there it seems, but you were really skinny.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, number one, hard to maintain. And not something you wanted, right?
I was obsessively riding a bike every day for about 8 hours.
8 hours a day?
Starving myself. Yeah, I like had this fantasy of being like a professional amateur cyclist. I went and followed the Tour de France one year and rode most of the stages of the Tour de France. I would get up in the morning at 5 a.m., get on my bike and ride it 100 miles just about every day.
I mean, that is 100 miles from the person you were when you were 22, probably unimaginable that you'd ride any cycles of the Tour de France or 100 miles a day, right?
Yeah, it was insane, but not sustainable either. I couldn't make money. My wife was like, "Hey, moron, you have to go back to work. Like, what are you doing? This is not generating an income."
Unless Philadelphia 2 is coming
Yeah,
out, I don't know.
And I was actually too skinny. There's a real cognitive dissonance that comes along with this. I kept waiting for a click to happen, like an enlightenment to occur from weight loss that I'd know, like I'm done losing weight. It never happened. So I go to see this doctor one day. I'm 240 pounds at the time, riding my bike 100 miles a day. And I wanted him to say, you're going to be good if you lose 20 more pounds. That's what I wanted him to say. I go in, he says, no, you got to lose. You got to get to 185. You got to lose 60 plus pounds. And I'm devastated. I'm like heartbroken, distraught. And he says, we're going to put you in a DEXA scan. I'm going to get you an exact number. Puts me in the DEXA scan, comes back, is looking at it. He says, this was a mistake. You got to do it again. I did a second DEXA scan, comes back and says, you know what? You're 240. You're 14% body fat. You don't need to lose a pound. You're good. Stop. You're done. And I walked out of it going, what the fuck does he know? I need to lose 20 pounds. Like, it doesn't matter. I was looking to fix something internal that I expected like to occur so that I become a normal person through weight loss. It's not going to happen.
I'm not going to psychoanalyze you. It's unfair. But I'm going to ask you something that is a bit of a psychoanalytic question.
All right.
And there's no way you haven't thought of this. You were eating to excess.
Yeah.
You were doing drugs to excess.
Yeah.
you're riding a bike to excess.
Yes.
I might even say that maybe you're lifting weights to excess and
I'm
being in the
not
gym.
today, but I have.
But
in
you've
my
had
life.
that.
Yes, sure.
What is it about you? Regardless of calorie counting and carbs, I mean, there's something about Ethan Suplee that is just wired in a way of extremes, right?
Yes.
Can you fight? Can you even fight? I mean, it has to be something, right? Do you have an extreme in your life right now?
No. Right now,
First time?
I am practicing radical moderation, and it's an effort. But I can't say that if some extreme takes over me, that I won't go down that rabbit hole.
How much did kids have to do with you? I mean, I think it's, for me, my daughter is 14 years old. I have one child. And she's the greatest, funniest, most amazing person in the world. And she texted me this morning, and she said, "I want to meet Ethan." By the way,
I would love to meet her.
Yeah,
By the way, the stories about her at the comedy club, they're amazing.
yeah, she did see Dave Chappelle. My daughter saw
Yeah.
Chappelle twice in one night in front of 50 people, which was hilarious. But she is the thing that is in my head if there's a line of cocaine, and that doesn't happen. It's never happened. But I'm just saying, hypothetically, if it was a line of cocaine, I'd be like thinking my daughter, like, you know, fentanyl, my daughter, heart attack. This would be the horrible. Everything is through that prison.
Yeah.
It is the most moderating influence in your life. It is children, and I don't understand people who, you know, get bloated, fat drug addicts and die, and they have 3 kids. You have 4, and you're a grandfather, and you're younger than me,
Yeah.
which is totally insane. How that must have had an effect on it in some way,
It's
right?
my wife and my kids have had the biggest effect.
Yeah.
There is no my fear of relapse into drugs and alcohol is almost non-existent. But I think abstinence is way simpler. Maybe not easier, especially maybe not easier in the beginning, but it's simpler. It's less steps than designing your life to be healthy with food.
Yeah.
Food is tricky because even with kids, my kids want to bake cookies and want me to taste them. And it's like heartbreaking not to have that experience with them. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm stealing a part of their childhood. But what has been easier is like binge eating late at night or going to a drive-through. Like that kind of behavior has stopped largely, I think, due to the responsibility of kids because it's a similar visualization as like a line of cocaine.
I also think that it probably, induces a lot of respect in kids because, I don't think people measure this usually, but looking at who you were and who you are now and looking at that evolution is like, man, my dad, he's not only in The Wolf of Wall Street, he's an incredible amount of
None of
self-control.
them has seen The Wolf of Wall Street, Michael.
My daughter asked me if she could see The Wolf of Wall Street last week. I said, absolutely not. We did watch Goodfellas, though.
14 is too young.
14 was fine for Goodfellas.
Yeah.
There was a little stabbing at the beginning.
There's multiple orgies in The Wolf of Wall Street.
I know that's the thing. And she doesn't want to watch that with me. It's like the grossest. She's like so creeped out by it.
I will say I accidentally brought my kids, not accidentally, very intentionally, not the little ones, but the older kids. We were in Europe and we wanted to see an American movie and The Hangover had just come out.
Oh.
And it was fairly fine
Yeah.
until the end. And at the end, we felt like horrible parents for all the flashes of Zach Galifianakis and his cock. It was a disaster.
Yeah, that was might have been your lowest parenting
Yeah, it
moment,
was
was Zach Galifianakis' cock.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with him?
No.
All right. Well, when you do, tell him that story.
yeah.
No, I think what you are like with your kids when it comes to drugs and alcohol. You want to try it? You want to try it? I'm the opposite of that. I have a contest, which anybody, my daughter's so annoyed by it. Anybody walks on screen, I'm like, he's dead. Do you know why? And she's like, I know fucking drugs, of course. And like, that guy's dead. Like, I'm like, of a list of dead people.
I'm very open with my kids about the effects drugs had on me. But at the same time, my wife drinks and doesn't have a problem with it. So they get to see both sides of it where I'm going like, I can't, they've never experienced me having a drink in my hand, but they've experienced my wife drinking.
Yeah.
So
You know what was the proudest moment? This is how pathetic my life is. The proudest moment for me was when my daughter said to me, Papa, no one can tell when you're drunk, which is true. I have a superpower that when I'm drunk, people don't know.
Right.
And my daughter pointed it out to me when she was 13, and I was like, you are very perceptive, and this is super embarrassing.
Right.
But, there you go. All right, let's talk to some people out there in two-way land, and I'm sure there are some people out there in two-way land who have questions for Ethan. Where are we going? Who is it? Dean? Is that Dean? Is that Dean? Look at Dean. Dean, do you have a Christmas tree up still?
I don't hear Dean.
I don't hear Dean yet either. Oh, that's just a light. Dean, I think, is muted.
There we go.
There
Hey,
we go, Dean. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for the opportunity. Ethan, I love that. I'm sorry. Remember the Titans and your role, Louis. That's gonna
Yes.
stick with me forever. I love that. Great range. Today, what's going to stick with me is I got this written down. If you are an enemy of yourself, then it's hard to progress. I don't know if you meant that to be a quotable, but I love it. I'm curious, when you hit, let's call it setback city in anything, or whether it's the weight or I don't know, you lose a role. What are you doing? What do you say to yourself? How do you make sure that you snap back to where you want to be than rather than where you are?
Yeah, I mean, okay, with weight, there was certainly decades where a setback could take me out into like an almost amnesia for months or a year, and then I wake up again, back at square one, going, "Oh my God, how did I get back to this?" So I just try to remember that I want to get back on track as quickly as possible and stay present and grounded in the moment. Like, all we can do is be here now. I don't know. Some non-dualist probably said that.
I think also Oasis.
Oasis, yeah.
That's
And,
a Liam Gallagher
yeah.
quote.
I try to figure out what the best path for me is and stick to it and know that I'm never going to be perfect, and that when I deviate from that path, just to get back on it as fast as possible.
But how much do you have to talk to yourself in that way? I mean, are you in your head often saying, you got to do this, Ethan, you got to do that, Ethan, or is it you just skate through life now because you've figured it out?
There's no skating through life. That's another thing I desperately wanted. I wanted to hit a weight that I could, my perception, look, I think it's probably not nice to call people normal people because everybody's got their baggage.
Yeah.
But my perception was of the normies who were not addicts and not morbidly obese, that they could have a glass of wine and didn't have to drink the bottle, or they could have a Big Mac and eat half of a large fries and then be like, I'm done. I can't do that. So there is kind of a lot of dialogue happening.
So it's like this inner monologue is with you at all times.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would sound like some kind of schizophrenic if I just was telling you all the different thoughts I was having all the time. But like, there is no, I don't have to weigh my food today. That's the benefit of like diligently weighing it and measuring it for a year, to know like what a serving of chicken is for me. Mm-hmm. Because my body doesn't tell me that I've had enough. My body will just be an empty hole that wants more, more, more. And so I have to analytically regulate that stuff.
Well, thank you, Dean, right? It was Dean, for the question. And I want to say, if people hear that and they hear what Ethan has to or does go through at one point, measuring chicken, whatever, it is also what it's like to be a diabetic. It is every meal, everything you take into your body is a consideration. Yeah. There is nothing that's not a consideration, and it's really, really annoying, and I wish it would end. All right, Jen, do we have Jen with us? There's Jen. You're outside, Jen. Where are you, Jen?
I had to come outside because I didn't want my daughter to hear this question I was about to ask.
Tough to hear you, but keep going. We'll try.
Is that going to be a problem?
Now you go. It's better.
Okay. I had to come outside because I didn't want my daughter to hear the question I was about to ask.
Oh, okay.
Well, my daughter she's a little overweight, and I struggle to. Is there anything that anybody could have said to you, Ethan, that you would have actually not gotten defensive about, or that would have stuck with you? Mm-hmm. I can't talk to my daughter about.
Yeah, can you hear that? By the way, you heard her daughter is overweight.
Okay, yes.
How old is she, by the way? I lost her audio again.
She's 20.
She's 20.
She's 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think the question was, I'm sorry, your audio's a bit muffled.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We'll work it out because I'll get a good question out of this because I think it's your question, which is essentially what do you say to somebody who's your daughter and not sound condescending and not sound like you're kind of delivering a sermon or being mean or being prescriptive about something.
Yeah, I think it's a tough spot to be in. My friends had interventions with me a number of times about drugs. None of them stuck, and I believe my friends felt like failures because of this, like they had failed me or failed in saving me. My parents put me on diets from the time I was 5, and I only progressively gained weight through my adolescence. And then the minute I was kind of free of them, my weight exploded. And then I became a drug addict. Like I was the most disappointing kid you could possibly have in that sense. I think I don't believe that people change until they decide to change. But that's not to say that Jen shouldn't communicate with her daughter what she feels. But I think she should realize that she's doing it for herself. Mm-hmm. I just don't think people get sober.
But I mean, people, they have to want these things, but I guess one version of the question is there anything you can do to push them along that doesn't sound condescending, that is helpful and shows that you care, but not that you're angry or disappointed or something like that?
Tell them that. Tell them, I love you. I'm concerned for you. I want to see you better.
Yeah.
But know that this is largely for yourself.
Yeah.
Communicating that the person probably knows that, probably understands all of that, and isn't going to make some big adjustment until they are really ready to.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the question, Jen. Apologies for the audio. Ethan, before we go, market yourself. I mean, you got Instagram. You got like 9 billion followers or something.
Instagram is great, but I like Substack. I write on Substack.
Oh yeah, you
write
write
essays on
about
Substack.
these issues on. What is the Substack? Is the American Glutton is the Substack?
American
too, right?
Glutton is the Substack, and every single Instagram post I've ever done, I wind up having to cut half of it off because they don't let you write that much. And Substack is would be the continuation of anything I've posted on Instagram is going to be more in depth on Substack.
But you should probably go to the Instagram because.
Yes, more
because
pictures.
then it's like there's all the pictures and
videos.
Every time I look at, it doesn't matter how much I see of Ethan. I look at the pictures and I'm just every time I'm like, holy shit, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy
that you were that way and successful. But you're extremely successful still. You're thinner, you're healthier. I'm trying to take inspiration from you to. I can't stop drinking. I'm sorry. I just love it too much.
By the way,
I'm
not some teetotaling nut. It's just not good for me. My wife drinks, and I support it. Sometimes I encourage it.
Drinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
She go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ethan.
My pleasure.
I hope you'll come back. And thank all of you for watching. We will be back on Thursday at 4:00. And again, it's a mystery, but I'm just going to tell you there'll be a little bit more politics on Thursday than there is today, because there's a lot of it. And I also want to thank our friends at FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, thefire.org/Moynihan, where you can get the newsletter, sign up and donate some money. One of my favorite organizations out there. And we will see you, I hope, in 2 days.